What's going on, everyone? Running a few errands and wanted to take a moment and answer some questions that people had in regards to not just the big fifth wheel, that big Heartland Gateway that I did a video on, but also other videos that they see on some of the travel trailers and fifth wheels that I've gone out and filmed. So one of the first points that most people make on those videos, if they are trying to be critical, which I think maybe a third of my viewers tend to be critical when they watch a video on trailers, is how shoddy perhaps the frame looks, how there's rust, how on various components they feel that it's just an indication of how poorly some of these things are built and assembled. And I want to take a second to talk about that because I've done several videos on the whole process of building travel trailers and fifth wheels and why you are likely to run into some problems, some potentially major, but the majority of them being minor problems. Basically that the industry assembles these down an assembly line. They're built entirely by hand, and because there's no dedicated format to where every screw and every nut and bolt goes, there are chances that some guy with a nail gun or somebody with a caulking gun or somebody with a piece of assembly equipment just didn't do the best possible job at their specific station at that specific moment. Or when somebody stapled a piece of trim or wood, perhaps the staple went in or didn't connect or fasten the way that it might every single time. There's not an exact science to where a staple's going to go once it passes out of a nail gun or a tack gun into wood. It tends to follow the grain of the wood. So all sorts of different scenarios that can occur when building an RV that really you avoid when building a car or a pickup truck. So to expect that you're going to get the same level of construction quality in an RV is kind of a stretch. What you will tend to get in an RV is more of a residential type construction build. So what I mean by that, and why that all circles around to this topic that I'm getting at, is you have a lot of folks that watch the videos and they look at the frame of the Heartland that I film, or they'll look at components on a DRV that I film and they'll say, wow, there's already surface rust there. There's already rust forming. How poor or how much of a piece of junk is that specific unit because of that rust? And what I want people to understand is if you look at how an RV is constructed from inception to the point it rolls off the assembly line and is ready for its first pre-delivery inspection, you'll see that similar to residential construction, things happen before hands ever start assembling an RV. What I mean by that is typically Lippert or whoever is developing the frame, BAL, or if it's an in-house brand, they pre-order frames. They have sometimes dozens of them or hundreds of them that sit outside. They're all steel. They're designed to be outside. So when these frames come off the assembly line at their fabrication facility, sometimes they're painted, sometimes they're powder coated. You know, they use different methods for different frame manufacturing. And what ends up happening is there's areas where maybe when they paint it, you know, there's a pinhole area in the paint where moisture can get in and you start developing surface rust. This is a problem for any type of metal fabrication, whether it's an RV or whether it's a vehicle frame. Now, vehicle manufacturers take extra steps to protect their frames in most cases. If it's General Motors, they use a Knox coating. If it's Ford or Ram, they use an E-coated frame. And the cosmetic perfection of their frame is definitely more exacting. They're definitely wanting people to look at the frame and see it as a better built unit. On RVs, the frame, though it's essentially the spine or the structure of an RV, they don't go through that same care that you might expect in the automotive industry. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the frame's bad or that the build quality of the unit's bad. You don't need a incredibly high quality weld to hold a joint fine. And I think that a lot of people, when they watch these videos, they expect that components that are rarely ever looked at and that are being assembled by hand need to have the cleanest and best quality welded components. Now, let's look at that from a skilled labor perspective. If you're hiring a worker to assemble components on an RV frame and you have a certain income that you have to pay that specific worker, Would you say that you're going to pay them the same amount that you would pay someone who designs and fabricates custom motorcycles or custom, barbecue grills, or things that when you look at, you expect a level of perfection? Probably not. And even if you do hire those people to do the work, you're not going to give them the time they need to really dedicate to making sure every weld has the cleanest line, or there's no slag anywhere, or every connection looks visually appealing. You're just not going to see that. These are designed to fulfill a need, and that need, of course, is to support a fifth wheel. So just because you have portions of a frame that don't have the cleanest weld does not mean it's a bad weld. It just may not look that great. And you're also going to start seeing surface rust on things like that on frames and components that are exposed to the elements. Shoot, you can look under almost any vehicle and you're going to find rust forming in certain areas right off the bat. Any metal that's exposed to humidity or air is going to start to rust. It's going to develop surface rust. Now, the time frame that it would take to eat completely through a sheet of metal is going to vary depending on where you take it, but that's another reason why you see a lot of these frames that are covered with protected layers underneath the RV, because you don't want salt and all those things getting tossed up into the I-beam or onto the metal that makes up the frame. There's a lot of different areas like that that I give RV manufacturers a pass. And I give them a pass because I understand the process, and I think that's a big piece of it. Going into buying something like an RV with the proper expectations is incredibly important. You can't go into an RV assuming that somebody's going to assemble it like they do a Rolex, or that somebody's going to put it together like they're going to put together the pickup truck you drive, or, maybe a custom home that you're building. They're going to be built in what I consider to be a satisfactory level for the most part. The challenge is when parts just aren't done well, or the one specific unit that you're buying has fundamental construction problems inherent in how it was made. That's where you really run into issues. And that's one of the reasons why I talk about the difference in how some RVs are built. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if they were all assembled exactly to plan, you would have a pretty good unit. The challenge, again, is because you have people working on them. Some of them are having a really great day doing a really good job. Some of them's minds may be distracted because something's going on in their life that's impacting them. At the end of the day, it shouldn't really matter to the end customer, but unfortunately, if you are the one that buys the unit that had people do things in a way that weren't correct, then you are likely to have a problem or a failure occur with your specific unit. So I hope this rant wasn't too long. I just wanted to make that point because every time I post a video on an RV, specifically the frame, the suspension, the axles, and people see surface rust or they see, sloppy welds, they like to call it out. And guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.